Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you'd like to get some weeknight meal inspiration, then just keep watching. Tonight for dinner, I'm making seafood cannelloni. Now, Carrabba's used to have a dish like this on their menu. It was my favorite thing to have there, but they took it off years ago. I came across this copycat recipe, and it's very close to it from what I remember, so I like to make it every once in a while. To get started, I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to take this can of baby shrimp that I have drained and roughly chop that and add that to my mixing bowl. Next, I'm going to take this can of crab meat that I've also drained and pick through just to make sure there weren't any shells and add that. Then I'm going to take some bay scallops, chop those in half and add that to my mixing bowl. Then I'm going to add in the ricotta cheese. And I will include the recipe for this in the description box below. Next, I'm going to add in the parsley flakes, then the egg, then the zest of 1 lemon, next the milk, then I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. And finally, I'm going to add in my grated Parmesan cheese and then stir that until it's well combined. Next, I'm going to take my casserole dish and spray it with some cooking spray. Next, I'm going to take these egg roll wrappers and one at a time, I'm going to place the wrapper on my counter. I'm going to take a spoonful of the filling and add it to the very end of the wrapper. And then firmly, yet still gently, I'm going to wrap that egg roll wrapper around the filling and then place that into my casserole dish. The recipe does state to place the filling into a Ziploc bag and use that to fill the cannelloni, and you can do that. I just feel like that's an extra unnecessary step. I feel like the spoon works just as well, so that's what I'm going to do. And once I've made all of my cannelloni, I'm going to move on to the sauce. Now, I did get exactly 6 cannelloni, and that's what the recipe calls for. So to make the Alfredo sauce, I'm going to start by taking some roasted red peppers that I've drained, and I'm going to process them in a food processor. I've made Alfredo sauce a couple of times on my channel before, and again, it's so quick and easy to put together, and this is just like the other recipes I've made, except for you just add roasted red peppers. So here in this skillet, I've got it over about medium heat. I'm going to add my butter, my pureed roasted red peppers, my cream. I'm going to give that a stir. And then the recipe calls for fresh garlic. I didn't feel like mincing it, so I just used some garlic powder. And then I'm going to season that with some pepper and a little bit of salt. And I'm going to cook that for a few minutes until it starts to thicken, and then I'm going to add in my Parmesan cheese and give that a stir. And then I'm going to allow that to cook for another couple minutes until it's thick. And once that's thickened, I'm going to pour my sauce over my cannelloni, and then I'm going to place this into my preheated oven for about 20 minutes. And here is the finished cannelloni. I'm going to allow it to cool for a few moments before I serve it. And to go along with that, while that's cooling, I'm going to cook some of this Texas toast that I got at the Dollar Tree in my air fryer for a couple minutes on each side at about 400 degrees. And here are the finished plates. So we have the cannelloni, the toast, and then some side salads with some homemade ranch dressing. This is really good. It's light, but it's rich at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. And if you don't like seafood, you could probably make this with like some shredded or leftover rotisserie chicken. That would be good. And this would also be good for Valentine's Day. And that was dinner tonight. For dinner this next night, I just made some quick chicken patties. My husband wasn't hungry at dinner time, and I didn't want to make anything big just for me, so I took one of these chicken breast fillets from Tyson. I cooked that in my air fryer. I'm also going to make some of this macaroni and cheese from Great Value, the thick and creamy. I'm just going to cook that according to the package instructions, and here is my finished plate. That thick and creamy macaroni and cheese is actually really good. I would recommend you give that a try if you haven't. And then here's my chicken patty on a bun with some ketchup, and that was my quick dinner. For dinner this night, I'm making country fried steak fingers. First, I'm going to get started with one of the sides. I'm making Mandy in the Makings green beans. I've seen her make these several times before and wanted to give them a try, but just hadn't. And here recently, I watched an older video from Moss Family TV where they made them and they raved about them. So I decided I'd finally give them a try, and they're delicious. My husband, like I said, who hates green beans, he really enjoyed them. So I highly recommend you give this a try. I'll include Mandy's recipe for this in the description box below, but you basically cook up some bacon in your saucepan. You then add the green beans to the bacon grease. You add some chicken stock, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and a little bit of brown sugar. Give that a stir, and then you cook that for about 30 minutes. For my other side, I'm going to make some mashed potatoes, so I just have some russet potatoes that I have washed, peeled, and chunked. I'm just going to boil those until they're tender, mash them up with some butter, milk, salt, and pepper. Now for the gravy. I always make my gravy from scratch, but I wanted something quick tonight. My mom recommended this peppered gravy mix from Pioneer, so I'm just going to cook this according to the package instructions on the back. Next, I'm going to take these Tyson country fried steak fingers. I got these on BOGO at Publix a few weeks ago. I cooked these in my air fryer. I believe I cooked it at 400 degrees for about 3 or 4 minutes, flipped it and cooked it for another 3 minutes. And then here are my side dishes. I did have a little bit of that Great Value thick and creamy macaroni and cheese left over from the other night, so I just heated that up in the microwave with a little bit of milk. And then here are the mashed potatoes, green beans, and the gravy. And here are the steak fingers out of the air fryer. They were really nice and crispy. And here are the finished plates. Dinner was so good. It was quick and easy to put together, and it was super comforting. I've never had frozen country fried steak before. I don't make it very often, and when I do, I always make it from scratch, but this was actually really good. I would recommend those Tyson steak fingers. For dinner this next night, I made my mom's Tater Tot Casserole. So to get started, I've got my oven preheated to 375 degrees. I'm going to grease my casserole dish. I'm having this recipe because it's just my husband and I, so I'm using a 9x9. I'm then going to add in my browned ground turkey. The recipe does call for ground beef, but I usually substitute turkey for ground beef. Next, I'm going to add on my shredded cheddar cheese. Then I'm going to add on my tater tots. Next, I'm going to set that aside and make my mixture to pour over that. So in this bowl, I'm going to add my cream of mushroom soup. Then I'm going to take some milk, pour it in the can, and just kind of slosh it around a little bit, and then add that. And then I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then pour that over the casserole. Now, if you want your tater tots extra crispy, you can actually add this mixture before you add your tots. So you would add your ground meat, your cheese, then this milk mixture, and then your tater tots. And I'm also seasoning my tater tots with just a little bit of salt and pepper as well. And then I'm going to bake this for about 45 minutes to an hour, or until the tater tots are brown. And I forgot to get a picture of the casserole out of the oven, but here are the finished plates. The tater tot casserole might not look like much, but it's pretty delicious. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, you can add in frozen vegetables or green beans or corn, whatever vegetables your family likes, you can add to the casserole. We like to keep ours pretty simple. I served this with some side salads with some homemade ranch, and that was dinner this night. For dinner tonight, I'm making Ritz baked chicken. I'm going to get started with one of my side dishes. I have 2 sweet potatoes here that I've washed really well. I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees. I'm going to prick the sweet potatoes really well, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of oil to the potatoes, and then I'm going to bake those at 400 degrees. Now, I don't know if you can tell from the footage or not, but these sweet potatoes are super, super thick, so I ended up having to cook these for about an hour and 10 minutes. They still weren't done, so I ended up having to microwave them for a few moments. For my chicken, I took 2 chicken breasts. They were really large, so I sliced them in half. I'm going to season them with just a little bit of salt and pepper on one side. And then for the coating for the chicken, I have this Ritz coating mix. I got this at Kroger. This is the garlic flavor. I'm going to place that into a dish, and I'm just following the instructions on the back of the package. It says to dip your chicken breasts into water and then into the coating mix, and then cook that at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. This cookie sheet, I have lined with parchment paper, but I just sprayed it with a little bit of cooking spray just to make sure it didn't stick. And then again, I'm just following the instructions. I dip my chicken breasts into the water and then into the coating mix, and then I'm going to place that onto my cookie sheet, and again, pop that into the oven for about 20 minutes. For my other side dish, I'm making some sauteed zucchini. I have my zucchini that I have washed really well. I'm going to slice off the ends, cut it in half, and then cut each half into, I believe, 6 pieces. Now, this is a very small zucchini. This is just what Walmart gave to me, so you'll see on our finished plates we didn't have a lot of zucchini, but I wanted to make sure to use it. So to cook that, I have my skillet over about medium heat. I'm going to use some of this avocado oil. This is new to me. I haven't really used it before, but I found this can at a great deal at, I believe it was TJ Maxx, so I wanted to try that. So I just have the zucchini, and then I'm going to season it with some salt and pepper and garlic powder, and you can use whatever seasonings you like here. And I'm going to cook that for about 3 to 5 minutes or until the zucchini is nice and tender. And here are the finished plates. So we have the chicken, the sauteed zucchini, and then those sweet potatoes were huge. I cut them in half and served each of us a half. I put just a little bit of butter, not even a tablespoon on it, a little sprinkle of cinnamon, and then about a teaspoon of brown sugar. And that was dinner this night. Next up, I'm making Crockpot chicken and dumplings. Now, I will include the recipe that I got this from in the description box below, but I very loosely follow that recipe. So here's what I do. I spray my Crockpot liner with some cooking spray. Then I add in some chicken thighs. I like to use the thighs, but you could use whatever cuts of chicken that you like, chicken breasts or drumsticks, whatever you like. I'm going to season the chicken with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I'm going to add in my chicken broth. Now here I added about 2.5 cups. I'm going to reserve the rest and see if I need it later. Last, I'm going to take my can of cream of chicken soup, add that, stir it around a little bit, cover this with the lid, and I'll cook this on high for about 3 hours, or you could also cook it on low for 6 hours. And just a quick note, I came across this recipe a few months ago, and I've made it a few times since then, and we enjoy it. Before then, I had always made chicken and dumplings the same way, and that was how my granny taught me, which she would take chicken, cover it in water, cook it on the stove until the chicken was done. She would shred it, and then she would take either homemade biscuit dough or Bisquick, roll it out, cut it into rectangles, and then cook it that way. So you can do either, but when it comes to chicken and dumplings, I am a purist. I don't like any extra seasonings or vegetables in it, but if you do, totally add whatever you like. The recipe calls for onion, garlic, parsley, and poultry seasoning. You can add that, but again, I'm a purist, so I'm omitting all that. After 3 hours, I'm going to remove my chicken. I'm going to check the temperature and make sure that it's at least 165 degrees. And then I'm just going to remove the skin and shred the chicken with a couple forks. I'm then going to place the chicken back into the crock pot. Next, I'm going to add my biscuits. You can just use your favorite brand. I'm using these from Great Value. This can is super cheap. It's 50-something cents. I'm going to take the biscuits out of the can and then press them with my hand onto the counter just to flatten them out a little bit. And then I'm going to take my knife, and I like to cut them into quarters, but you can cut them into strips or however you like them. But you're just going to want to cut all of your biscuits, and then I'm going to place them into my crock pot, give it a gentle stir, and then cover it with the lid and cook it for another hour or until the dumplings are cooked all the way through. And here are the finished dumplings. I did taste them. I added a little bit of salt and pepper and then about a half a teaspoon of powdered chicken bouillon. And here are the finished plates. These dumplings are really easy to put together. They're very budget friendly, and I recommend you give this recipe a try. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.